Welcome back to Talk It Up with Taylor. Welcome to the 15th episode of Talk It Up with Taylor. Here we are. I told you guys that this would be another guest episode talking to a psychic intuitive. Spirituality is something that I got into during the start of COVID, funny enough. And so a lot of my friends know that I've gotten into some of the crystals, the singing bowls, some of the incense, the meditation. Fergie's playing with a bag. Anyway, we got very into just reconnecting with ourselves. We were in a time that we went through a little bit of a toxic time with a person, and so we were coming out and trying to refine or recreate ourselves. And so spirituality was there, and I really felt like it was something that I could understand. It was something that was going to help me. And it did, and it has. And so I really wanted to bring someone on who could help people understand that it's not rocks and that it's not just, again, the hippy-dippy voodoo stuff that people talk about, but talk it up. We're helping each other gain that awareness and understanding. So that's exactly what we're doing here. So in getting into the 15th episode of Talk It Up with Taylor, kind of crazy, we are going to be talking to Jemma Butterfly. That is her name. It's a sweet name. So buckle your seatbelts for those who are not ready for spirituality talk, and here we go. Welcome in everyone to Talk It Up with Taylor, and I would like to welcome you or introduce you to Jemma Butterfly. We met each other like a year ago.
Yeah, a year ago.
What were we doing? I just walked into the store.
Yeah.
Okay, so Jemma, give a little background into what you do, and then we'll get into how we met and that whole interaction.
I am a psychic intuitive, so I've been in the area for about, 9 years. But I started doing tarot readings for people and kind of like illuminating the collective is what I like to call it. Just kind of raising the consciousness of everyone.
Okay, so when I first walked into the store in like downtown South Bend, right? I think it was downtown South Bend. I feel like you and I immediately had a connection. Like all of a sudden, I was going in there to get a candle, and all of a sudden we started talking about the crystals. So I know a lot of people, you're probably like, the crystals, all that crystal talk. We'll get to that in a second to break the stigma. So you were able to read a little bit more into me as just someone I first met. I barely told you anything about me. Like how intuitively are you able to do that?
It's really like just a knowing, it just kind of comes to me kind of like my own thought, but it's not really my original thought of the real of thinking. It was just kind of like a drop-in thought.
Okay, so on Talk It Up with Taylor, and I told you a little bit about it, but one of the things on here is bringing awareness to people, understanding one another, especially strangers that we meet, because I feel like people put on this front instead of being vulnerable and opening up who they truly are. So in seeing how this world has been, especially the past 2 years, I know we bring it up a lot, but how have you seen people almost lack that awareness?
Well, I tend to work in a lot of dark spaces, bars, things like that. So I do tend to see a lot of people that mask, and it actually becomes more apparent the more they're trying to mask. So
okay, let's hear it.
Well, I mean, it's sort of just like I become that vibe. There's an interchange so that I could actually feel the energy points that we were talking about chakras earlier, kind of twist and turn and contort within my own energetic field, and I could see where it's coming from.
Okay, so I know something else that has become really prominent over COVID. I feel like a lot more people have become spiritual. I know Moldavite became a really big thing, and more people are like, chakras, we gotta be healthy. I know my last episode I was talking about, or a few episodes ago, whenever this one airs, I called it You Are What You Consume, and it wasn't just talking about eating healthy, like organic foods, non-GMO, all that stuff that people are into these days, but it's also paying attention to what you consume in conversations, what you consume in movies, social media, the news.
Definitely.
How does that affect people's energies or their vibes? I know people make fun of, or they're like positive and negative vibrations. What does that mean? But then they'll get into a conversation or a room and they're like, oh, this has good vibes. And you're like, well, that's technically what it is.
Yeah, definitely. So when people are talking about low vibration and high vibration, low vibration are the things like gossip and well, you know, you work for the news, so you know, kind of replaying the bad things over and over, and it kind of puts you in a state of mind and even an energetic level in the body, because the mind and the body are very connected. So if you're feeling very down, your body is going to feel very down, and the chakras are going to be not shut down, but just sort of closed, where it's not radiating so much energy outward. And we're light beings, so when all of our chakras are illuminated, we're raising in vibration. But when they're closed a little bit, kind of dialed down, then we dim and we become depressed, and just really wanting to segregate ourselves from the collective. So part of my job is to get people together.
And open it up.
Yeah, definitely.
So I know something is, a lot of people might know someone who is usually in a mood. And so I know that there are people that I've met who will walk into a room and you can automatically feel that you get a little bit anxious or you get a little bit down. Mm-hmm. How do the energies bounce off of each other and you're able to sense someone else's energy?
Well, for me personally, because I came from a background of trauma, I think because of my background, I'm able to just to be that empath and kind of draw back and not hold a lot of, take a lot of space. So part of my protective mechanisms growing up were to sort of draw back and come into a room and just sort of sense who was the narcissist or who was the person taking up a lot of energy.
You talk about the fear factor, and so we've talked about that before, and I've even brought up before that when you face challenges over and over, it's because you haven't learned a certain lesson.
Yes, exactly.
Okay, explain that to the people, why they're like, why do I keep going through the same challenges? Like, is there something I have to learn? I actually heard that from a coworker today. They're like, I keep facing the same thing, like I must have not learned something. And I was like,
Definitely. Because we're energetic beings, we tend to attract the same kind of vibration with different faces or different situations at different points in our lives. And it's just sort of like, because we're creatures of habit and cycles, we manifest the same situations. We attract them to see if we're able to grow beyond them. And I think the point of it is to lessen the trigger, lessen the emotional response, and being able to think beyond it and manifest better things for yourself.
Okay, I like that. Unblocking the trauma, and I know you said the cycles, and so something that people, I think it's hard to get out of the cycle because it's ingrained in you in such a young age. So childhood trauma is something that I brought up within, I think, the first episode of Talk It Up. I was like, this is something I want to get into. Throughout becoming an adult, I still don't feel like an adult, but I feel like I've learned how many adults fake it till they make it. Like when I was younger, I was like, wow, even in high schoolers seem like they have it figured out. No, I became a high schooler. I was like, we don't have it figured out. And I was like, maybe college, maybe when I graduate. And I was like, I still don't have it figured out. So what are you adults doing that makes it look like it's totally fine, but it's not? Like, how are you keeping it together? Anyways, the cycles of childhood trauma, how can that affect an adult even though you've gone through, there's so many years in between that trauma until the present day?
Well, I think what people need to look at is that it aligns your perspective. So you could be met with the same, let's even put it at a high vibration, this success that you have keep coming in, but then you self-sabotage it because you think you're not worth it. You see what I'm saying? And that could be a cycle that you had from when you were younger. It doesn't necessarily have to be low vibration every time. It could be challenges that you're just sort of not taking because you think you're not worthy. Well, you have to kind of unlearn those patterns and break the cycle and start learning your worth and start doing just positive affirmations and self-love, you know, to kind of nurture that inner child and pay attention to it like it's your child, you know, and give it the love that it needs rather than just sort of denying the inner child Because we all have an inner child within us.
We do. I definitely have mine. I don't know how much trauma we'll see on that, but in terms of like, I have that inner childhood energy. Anyways, moving on to chakras. With the balance factor, I know we talk on that a lot here on Talk It Up, is the B word, balance. And so going back to the whole crystals that we brought up in the beginning, I know even my boyfriend, he's like, crystals. And I'm like, there's something about them that's like grounding, but how would you explain the energy factor and the purpose behind it to people?
Well, crystals do have their own properties and energies to them, and we're basically feeling our energy through them, and there's sort of like an energetic exchange. And once we get to that point, we can actually hear them as well. And it's just like an interplay, really. But I think some people are afraid of connecting. So, you know, mind, body, spirit, is it a connecting practice to put you on all levels, you know? But yeah, I love crystals myself, so.
Why might people be afraid to connect with something? I know we talk about being afraid of connecting with other humans, getting vulnerable with one another, but why would one be afraid of connecting with themselves?
Well, I think there's a lot of shadow work that needs to be done in order for a person to connect with themselves. And if you're constantly denying or berating yourself, you're going to be afraid of connecting to yourself because you don't, you know, it's sort of like, is that true? And so challenging the programs that you've been fed is basically the gist of it, you know, with shadow work.
I know I was talking to, what was it, a week ago? 2 weeks ago? 2 weeks ago we were talking, and I was telling you I was feeling, not necessarily, it was like I needed a little bit of guidance. Like I was somewhat lost, but I was like, I kind of know I'm in the right place, but I just feel like I need that extra, like, here you go, Taylor, go this way. And I was like, I am torn in my life right now because one part of me is like, the relax factor and like, take it easy, everything will work out. And the other side is like, go, 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 get it done. You got to chase after it. You have to get it done, make it happen. What do you do with that? What do you do with that?
Well, I think we get so lost in the hustle and bustle that we forget that this is a journey and we need to enjoy the journey and also be an active creator while on the journey. So instead of replaying those old programs, you're actually manifesting new things to break out of that cycle. So hopefully, hopefully you understand that and are able to be in the present and create better opportunities for yourself.
In breaking the cycle, I know it helps to have a higher vibration. What ways can people increase their vibration? Some simple ways, ones that are easy to start and it maybe takes like 5-10 minutes out of your day.
Well, what I like to tell people is, well, I get it from Abraham Hicks, but she's like, if you go to bed ornery, you're going to wake up ornery. So there's sort of a thing that comes full circle throughout the day where you kind of like, if you have a negative thinking thought or emotion, you kind of replace it quickly with a positive one. So it doesn't spiral downward, you know, and just sort of keep on yourself and be aware. There's an awareness that needs to happen as to the vibration that you're on and what you're attracting kind of match up. And I think once you keep doing it, you'll see the reverb, kind of like yelling in a cave, you know. You'll just be able to feel that feedback.
Okay, I like that. When it comes to, so that's kind of, I guess, almost your own energy, but when it comes to interacting with other people's energy and going back to the beginning, you can almost feel when someone has a negative energy and it brings yours down. How do you protect yourself from that? How do you distinguish, this is how I'm feeling, this is my own energy, I'm good on the inside, so we just got to shake this weirdness from the outside. And how do you just stay grounded with yourself?
Well, there's a check-in process that needs to happen. So you'll ask yourself, like, is this mine? And then if the answer is no, then you need to put mental blocks in your mind. Like, I'm not going to let so-and-so's energy penetrate my auric field. And then just like that, it'll happen. Most people think that they have to go outward and you know, grind the gears of the 3D, you know, and stay away from me, I don't like you. No, that's not necessarily the way to do it. It's all mental. It's It's vibration, because if they feel that resistance from you, where they can't steal your light anymore, they'll go the other way. They'll find somebody else, because ultimately it's not you that they're after, it's just the energy that they're after. So if they're not going after you, they're going to find someone who doesn't have as strong boundaries to leech off of, like energy vampires.
We don't want any energy vampires. But I know a lot of people have, throughout the past few years, been trying to repel the energy vampires. And so from what I've seen, again, through COVID, spirituality has really been on the rise. And what's one of the factors do you think leads into that? Is mental health a huge thing?
Yeah, I think that people have had time to sort of think and feel being the the major thing here, and kind of having everything come in tandem. And into sight, I think the feeling part is catching up with the collective. It's not all about movement, and it's not all about thinking, it's feeling.
So when tying that into mental health, which I know spirituality on the rise, I feel like that almost plays a part with mental health. I know my mental health was affected the past few years, hence a lower vibration, and I was just feeling bleh for a while. Why mental health? Like, in increasing your vibration, how does that help your mindset?
Well, increasing your vibration is going to require you to change the thought that you're thinking, because thoughts are vibration. That's what all it is. So if you're at a low thinking thought, and you're replaying the trauma or replaying the fear being the biggest one, you're going to attract that. So it all starts with a thought, and then everything else comes in the picture.
So isn't it's like the thought, and then there's an emotion that's attached to it, and then it's the action, which then creates the result. All right, there we go. Okay.
Definitely.
So tell me, when it comes to you, and you're seeing all of this spirituality on the rise, you're seeing mental health on the rise, and you're also seeing people who are going, well, that's a bunch of BS. There you go. That's the face I was looking for. What do you have to say to that?
Well, I can't convince someone. I can just show someone. So if they give me a chance, then we can actually sit down and talk, and I can help them feel the energy that I feel by tapping into their energy. And then they're just kind of like, whoa, how did you know that? But yeah, it's just about showing.
And then what do you think? Is it more of like they just don't believe it because they haven't seen it before? Do they think it's a bunch of hippy dippy voodoo nonsense?
Yeah, I think I get locked in that voodoo hippie nonsense stuff, tree hugging stuff,
So what would you like people to know? Like, there are, of course, like every different group, every different culture, society, whatever you want to call it, within those there's like little subgroups. And so, right, you don't want to stereotype something because not everything part of that group is the same way. So when it comes to you, and it comes to what you're part of, the tarot, for example, explain to people how that works, instead of, hey, it's not always all of this stuff that is made to believe.
Right. So tarot is a form of divination. So is the Ouija board. So what I like to tell people about this is, tarot is a way of connecting to the divine, and we all embody the divine within us. Some of us can access it quicker than others, just because we have the proclivity of putting others before other people. I don't know. It's not a bad thing, and it's not voodoo. We all have those traits. So using tarot is not taboo, and I would recommend it to everyone to have a deck. Kind of like just sit in the morning and just draw 3 cards and ask Spirit to give them, direction for the day, or awareness for the day, and just to allow people to see that they are divine, and that there is beauty in knowing, and that even though we didn't come in here with a manuscript, there's actually a guide to living in love and light and compassion within the collective, for sure.
So I know this, when you're talking about something, a higher power than yourself, you're talking about this connection, you're talking about this love. Most people have different ideas for what that could be. You have God playing a large factor into that, but you also have the universe playing a large factor into that. You have all these different perspectives on this energy, this spirit that comes together, breaking the stigma that people do view spirituality as a certain way. Hey, it's not just rocks and cards. What is the actual purpose behind it?
Bringing a person back to themselves. That's been my experience within my own life, but also for other people, just walking people home.
Okay, so I know that I personally went through that after a toxic relationship, started getting into spirituality, and I was like, let's just try this out. I've heard about it. I'm fascinated and intrigued by it. And all of a sudden, it's like I was just getting into it for 2 months. And I felt like I was such a happier person. I was like, I know who I am now. Like, I'm Taylor Gattoni. Like, I know who I am. And so that talks about the higher vibration. Losing my train of thought here. Here we go again. You and I, we just keep rambling and trailing off. It's
the
fine.
air and fire.
What was I going with this? What the heck? Toxic relationship, getting into spirituality. So yeah, a lot of people are getting into it. It's making them feel good.
Yeah, exactly. You know, my dad's a minister. And I did spend a period of time away from my family, like, you know, almost 12 years. And then coming into my spirituality, I began to heal, and then I went back home. And I began to talk to him about his ministry, and we discovered that our missions aren't that different. And we started talking about the similarities of just holding space for people and compassion and love and being Christ-like, and you know, there's nothing wrong with that. Rather it is that you believe in God or Jesus, or if you believe in these modalities of divination, of channeling divination, it all comes from the same space. And that's Christ consciousness, that's consciousness, you know? So, yeah, I mean, I recommend that people find something that feels good.
Your dad being a minister, and one of the things is you originally didn't see eye to eye with each other.
Well, not really. I mean, I grew up in the foster care system and got adopted when I was 14, so a lot of my formative years were spent in different homes with different kinds of people. So I came in kind of living my own program, and so I was raised in the church, but it didn't kind of stop those programs from running necessarily just because I got adopted by a minister. You know what I mean? But yeah.
I didn't know that. Not that we've talked like too much, but okay, so she was nervous before she came on here. And you help other people open up and find themselves, and you can just like break that wall down, help them get vulnerable and open up like no problem.
Yeah.
So now you're coming on and you're opening up. I mean, talk about getting through some of those challenges for yourself, how you are still working on yourself even though you are spiritual. Because I feel like some people think because, hey, you believe in something and you have something that helps you, you know? It helps you through life.
Right. Well, for me, it really took me a while in my field to sort of start seeing the clients that were coming towards me were actually a reflection of myself, and how the universe was actually trying to help me help myself through these people that I was seeing and displaying these emotions that I had felt, but I didn't realize I was feeling them until I sort of turned it on, you know? So it led me to my own shadow work and my own work within myself. And that's how come you can feel, is because we're all one consciousness. You know, it's not that I'm a psychic intuitive, it's that I'm tuned into self. I am the embodiment of conscious energy.
Okay, so this conversation, the talk on spirituality, has evolved, I would say, greatly. And way back when, they really relied on this. And then it went into other beliefs and things, which is totally fine. But in going into how spirituality was a thing, and then it was not a thing, and now it's making that comeback. Why are people opening up to the idea of it again, or why is it making that comeback?
I think because, again, not to make it political, we have been asked to shut off our own personal lights. And so when we find something that gives us an ability to have an intent, whether it's, you know, a mantra or yoga practice or something that empowers us, it turns our light on and we realize how powerful we are. So, and it's not that we want to be so powerful that we take over the world. It's that we want to be powerful enough to unify and create something beautiful within the community.
Okay, and I just want to tie this together because it was so great before. We were talking about generational trauma and breaking those cycles, but unfortunately we ran out of storage and it shut off. So doing a quick catch up, I was asking you, like your dad, he was a minister and you went into spirituality because that's just how the program went. And so you're seeing the older generation not really getting along with the younger generation. There's almost this bash. So
Right.
Why is there this bash on each other? It's almost like they have the same goal, but they're doing it in different ways.
Right. And I explained to you earlier that, man, I'm so sad I didn't record.
I know. So much.
That the younger generation tends to be more in alignment with their truth, and the older generation's more like fake it till you make it type deal. And of course, those are two opposite points of view. So when they come together, you know, the younger generation is actually telling the older, like, you're wrong. And the older's like, you're younger. Like, and so there's automatically this, you know, pushback for sure.
Okay, one of my last questions for you, Jemma. When you have a pushback and you're forcing things to happen, or you're forcing them, blocking them out because you're like, I really don't want this to happen. When you're forcing something, when you are blocking it, what can that create? Like, why don't you want to do that?
Well, when you're holding resistance onto something, or when you're holding onto something really tightly, you're actually pushing it away, because you're telling the universe that you don't really believe it's going to happen for yourself, you know? So what I would say is set the intention, think about it, and then release it. Go do something else. Find your flow. Go downstream instead of upstream.
And how can this apply to daily life when people are manifesting something that they want and they're like, I want it, they're praying, they keep thinking about it all day, they're like, oh my gosh, I really hope this comes true, and it doesn't come true. Why is it so hard to let something flow? Why is it hard to let it go?
It's the fear of it not coming true.
But why have that fear? Why does that fear factor play such a big role? Is it the trauma?
Yeah. It's the feeling not deserving of it.
Gosh, so we really just came full circle here.
Yeah.
You're great. Jemma, where can people find you? What else would you like them to know about you? And then, where can they find you if they want to connect, if they want to do a reading and find themselves, like you helped me find more of myself?
Awesome. So go to gemmasuniverse.com and book an appointment with me. I do video readings, in-person parties, and I'm just looking to connect with you. So if you want to find a part of yourself within me, let's connect.
Jemma, you were telling me that you're a psychic intuitive, as we talked about earlier. You help people find themselves. That's the goal. What are 3 key takeaways you can give people that's pretty general, that they can relate to themselves in helping to find themselves?
Good feeling thoughts, holding yourself accountable, and see, I messed them up.
You're good.
And paying attention to what you're thinking, just being conscious.
Being conscious. I know that you and I were also saying that every single thought that you have isn't always something that you necessarily believe either.
Right, exactly. So that's why being aware of the thoughts you're thinking and understanding that it does create your reality. So plug in, be in the moment, and be an active creator.
All right, and one last fun little question for you. So it's called Talk It Up. It's getting vulnerable, opening up. Do you feel that you were able to do more of that?
Definitely, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Jemma.
Thank you so much.
I hope you guys learned a lot from Jemma. She was actually one of the very first people that I met here in South Bend when I moved for my first job. And so a whole year later is when we did that reading together. And it was during a very chaotic time where I felt lost. I mean, you guys know we had funk, we had all those other ones where I was like, I don't know what's going on, and I don't think anyone else knows what's going on either. So that was really helpful in talking with her. And if spirituality is not your thing, totally fine, okay? Teach their own. But I hope you at least gain some sort of knowledge and at least understand it a little better. And, you know, if you're still gonna call a crystal a rock, again, to each their own. Okay, so the updates I will say is, because we've been crazy busy, I realized that realistically a Talk It Up Tuesday once a week is probably not the easiest for me. I remember one of my Michigan State professors was like, Taylor, I appreciate how you always want to jump on these opportunities, but you do too much. Take some stuff off your plate. You really can't get to it all. Like, be real with yourself. So we're being real with ourselves, and we're going to do Talk It Up Tuesdays twice a month. So we're going to do it every other week. I know we already sort of do that with the guest interviews, but we're really going to do it every other week. There's a lot. If this was like my only full-time thing, I'd be like, sure. But this is a startup little hobby, and I hope you're all enjoying it so far. So again, if there's any feedback, comments, anything you want to talk up, or if you want to come on Talk It Up, go to talkitupwtaylor.weebly.com. I also think that spacing out these interviews will help in uploading it to Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So that way we're not going over a certain limit, and I can keep you guys all up to date with the episodes. So I hope you enjoyed episode 15 of Talk It Up with Taylor. Goodbye.